conditioners. They'll cost even more. Will people buy them? What are the business models that we can do so that people buy them? Once people buy them, they will be produced. This is the chicken and egg situation. So business models to promote more and more efficient equipment to come in so that tomorrow's buildings, tomorrow's factories, tomorrow's homes use less electricity to produce the same amount of useful products. There are, of course, many other things that can be said. But these, I believe, are the major priority areas that we'll have to focus on if we have to meet the INDCs that we have promised. And remember, we have promised this ourselves. We need to make sure that we deliver on them. I thank you for your attention.
Indeed, it's after a very long time that one heard such a focused, structured, informative talk, and we are deeply grateful to you, sir, for that. We are slightly running late. However, since this is a very, very important occasion, I thought we would still have about 10-15 minutes to take questions. So may I request members of the audience to please introduce yourselves, and there are a number of hands coming up, but I would suggest that you please ask a question. Let's keep observations out so that we can have larger number of questions, okay?
Maybe we can take 2 or 3 questions together, then
Yes.
answer, and then again 2 or 3 questions. That will just make it more efficient.
Yeah, I think that would be good. Yeah, let's club the questions. Okay, please, sir.
My question is, as we go on ramping up wind power generation, as we go on ramping up green power generation for fighting the climate change, on the other hand, in my opinion, we have to go on or start tapering down the dirty power generation, that is thermal power generation. And the important issues there is, first, how do we balance, it's a fine balance in my opinion, the fine balance between the ramping up wind power generation and commensurate decline or tapering down the thermal power generation, keeping the GDP growth rate rising.
Yeah.
This is one issue. And the next issue is this thermal power generation involves from mining to power station. Large number of people are working there. It's a labor intensive industry. So what are our plans as a country to educate and redeploy these large number of people? Thank you.
Yep, very valid question. Any similar question? Let's take the questions, then we can club them together.
From the Center for Environment Development, formerly of the Ministry of Environment and Forest. The question is, in Paris negotiation, before Paris and after Paris, I was keenly waiting for adaptation, not the mitigation part of it, adaptation part of it. Was there any discussion in Paris regarding adaptation? A part of adaptation is called migration. Climate-induced migration is part of adaptation. Was there anything on that? A and B, with regard to the International Adaptation Fund, Green Fund, $100 billion was the target for 2020. $7 billion till 2015, we got the figure. And what is the current position about that? And the last one, since you are in the Prime Minister's Council, the India's National Adaptation Fund, which stands at 320 crore at this point of time from 100 crore last year, what is the future of that? 3 ABC questions.
Thank you. May we have your question, please?
Welcome, Dr. Mathur, to Calcutta. I have a question.
Would you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, I am Sachin Trivedi from Bicon Consultants. We have seen that, when we started the journey with wind power, the tariffs were pretty high, and there were a lot of SOPs which government was giving for implementing wind power plants. Slowly, or in the last budget, or the budget before that, the SOPs were taken off, and we have seen that there is a decline in wind power generation. we are seeing, or rather heading towards a similar trend with solar as well. When you said 4.32 tariff, I believe that is Madhya Pradesh bidding which you were referring to, and there were just two parties, and lot of plants were left unbidded. There were no bidders for that because the tariffs had gone too low. So what do you think? Do you think we'll be able to meet the target with terms of solar, the aggressive plans which Mr. Modi has set up for India? Because
Right.
the tariff is going down, the interest rates are high, and we don't have any financing from the developed countries. So what do you think? Would
Yeah.
we be able to meet the target and the INDCs in terms of solar power plant implementation? Thank you.
Right. Next question, please. Yes, Professor Chaudhary.
Dr. Mathur, respected sir, I have I am Dr. V.K. Chaudhary from IIS WBM, Kolkata. My question is that during your directorship, we have seen many interesting presentations. One of the presentation gives the very nice picture that showing that how the per capita electricity consumption influences the human development index of different countries, and it is showing that for improvement of human development index there is a need for increase in per capita electricity consumption. But after a certain level, say 4,000 kilowatt hour per head per year, the human development index does not improve significantly or remains almost same or insignificant development. Now, it also indicates that we need to achieve an economy where we can restrict this. Another thing, important thing, that when we also put the human development index, India is at a very low, maybe about 0.6, behind China. And when the disparity in economy is taken care of, then our students have made a study. It is shown that the human development index further deteriorates in India. Whereas in case of China or some other countries, when the disparity correction is taken into consideration, the human development index is improved. So it means that in our economy, the human development index, or if we want to think of the development, then the disparity of economy has to be taken care of. It is playing a role in making the acceleration of the economy. So how this, are you having how you are going to plan that in terms of energy efficiency? You have told the challenges ahead of us. So how you are what is your opinion about that?
Right, sir. Yes, please. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Very pleasant afternoon. My name is A.K. Sinha. I am from National Productivity Council. In fact, my question may not be directly related to today's presentation, but very importantly, if we see our energy intensity is coming downward trend for the last 15 years, which is a very good development. At the same time, if we look into our industries as well as export, IT and IT related industries, lot of growth in IT and IT related industries which are low energy intensive, maybe high GDP growth, whereas the iron and steel, metal, sponge iron, they are also added in the last 5 years. Huge development, huge installations are there. I look forward from your views whether any specific analysis has been done on the contributing factors. One way, lot of energy intensive industries are installed, growth of IT and IT related industry and export growth vis-a-vis the energy intensity coming down. GDP being a very confusing word. So some light on this.
Yeah.
I'm D.P. Sharkar from Steel Tech Journal. The last World Steel Conference at Chicago, one professor speaker, he remarked that after 15-20 years, there's so much abundant solar energy that it may be free also. So what is your observation on that?
I'm afraid, let Dr. Mathur now take on these questions. Maybe now it's very difficult, there are about 3-4 hands. Okay, we'll try to take your question, but Malcolm, if you can keep it very short. Yeah, very short. Not possible. Okay, let's see. Very short, please.
Yes, sir. So the cost of solar power has come down, you said, from 18 to 4.32 rupees per unit from 2011 to 2016, right? So in your view, how long, but it's still double the cost of thermal power. How long would it take, going according to the present trend of technological innovation, that solar power, the cost would come to equal to thermal power?
Right.
Why I'm telling you this, the most important point is, in that case, the push will come, the pull will come from
Absolutely.
the consumer. Previously, you are making the push. But once the cost comes down,
Yep.
the pull will come from the consumer, and you won't have to do anything to push
Yep.
solar
Valid.
power. It will automatically come.
Right, at that far corner. Yes, that gentleman. Yep, very quickly, please. Right. Please.
Dr. Mathur, it's basically what exactly we are thinking about the green economics in terms of rewinding of indigenous knowledge and technology. Are we doing anything? Because I believe there are microgrids to be required. 50 lakhs people is out of grid in Northeast, and we are doing nothing. And again, there are a lot of losses in terms of TND and other losses. So what exactly we are thinking
Right.
about?
Thank you. Now let Dr. Mathur now take these questions, then we'll see how we go ahead.
Thank you very much. As I said earlier, it is this session which really invigorates me, which makes these meetings so enjoyable from my point of view. There is a range of questions, and I will try to answer them to the best of my ability. Some of them, I don't think I have the answers, but I would address them in as much as I know. I think we need to take, there's a central point in what Mr. Bhattacharya said about green power versus coal power. Thankfully, in this country, it's not a matter of green power versus coal power right now. And the reason is that, as Professor Chowdhury pointed out, there is a lot of need for energy in this country. Very rightly, as you said, if the quality of life of people, the Human Development Index has to increase, one of the key inputs is energy. So we need to supply more energy. Now, as we are supplying more energy, it will come from coal because it is still today financially the cheapest source, and it will come increasingly from renewables till the point that you made, till the point that it actually becomes a cheaper energy source. So, unlike the developed countries where you have to shut down a coal power plant in order to bring renewables online, we are in the very lucky situation of having to be able to deal with both, till we come to the point where the balancing problem starts. Thankfully, we are still some time away from that. My own perception is that around 2025, we will cross the 15, we'll be in the 15 to 20% of energy, not installed capacity, of energy coming from renewables. That's when the balancing problem will start happening. So, therefore, the issue of employment redeployment doesn't happen right now, because coal-based electricity will continue to increase, the number of people they have will continue to increase. But I think it is important to recognize that the regime in which we are working is very different from the developed countries. We are looking at both coal and renewables growing at the same time. The second question Dr. Ghosh, that you had asked was about adaptation at Paris and the National Adaptation Fund and the global things as well. As I said, it was a matter of some dismay to us that the entire emphasis in the discussions at Paris moved us away from adaptation. I think we achieved a great deal on the structure of the agreement, which is a positive thing. But the architecture that we achieved was largely mitigation based. Now, having said that, there is no reason why the same architecture cannot be used in this year, the next year, and so on, to also develop a similar architecture for adaptation. But adaptation is seen as much more local thing, and therefore there is a much lower interest in a global in global goals on adaptation, because that seems to be very difficult. The adaptation fund, the Global Adaptation Fund, has run out of money. It was to be financed by 2% of the proceeds from the CDM sales. CDM sales have gone to zero. The amount of money to the adaptation fund has gone to zero. The Green Climate Fund that has been created would support adaptation projects. And initially the thought was that 50% of the money that they provide would be for adaptation, but adaptation projects have been difficult to come. What I think the goal before us is very clear. We need to create projects that the GCF can provide funding for on adaptation issues. This is a challenge. Now the good thing is, within India, NABARD has been accredited as an agency that can approach the GCF for funding. NABARD has a very strong water agriculture background and therefore should be able to provide the resources that are needed to make these projects. National Adaptation Fund, we have committed to it. There has been some amount of money that has been put in. The key issue is to get it to start working. My own feeling is that during this calendar year, you will start seeing this fund operating. The issue regarding the what happens to wind and solar as time goes by. Now, the theory was that wind technology has developed enough that the renewable portfolio obligations on the distribution companies are enough demand that people will continue to invest in wind even though the SOPs disappear. We learned that that wasn't the case. So some of the SOPs have reappeared. The accelerated depreciation is there, though at a much lower level than it was. And for those who don't take accelerated depreciation, the fight for a generation-based incentive continues. But I think the direction has to be very clear that what we are trying to do is to move these industries from being publicly supported to being market competitive. Solar, I completely agree with you that I think the price has become too low if you look at it from the view of the rate at which you can get money from the Indian market. The companies which have provided bids at less than 5 are international companies who are using their international balance sheets. For example, in the developed countries, money is available at 2 to 3%. So if I can raise money at 2 to 3% and invest it in India, I can sell at a lower price. The problem, of course, that occurs is that during the period of repayment, there will be a dollar-rupee exchange rate variation, which means that while I'm getting paid in rupees, I'll get fewer dollars and therefore I won't be able to repay my loan. So a hedging mechanism is required. I'm told that what SunEdison was looking at was that it will set up the plant, so it's borrowed money at 2%, it will set up the plant and then sell it. So then, as far as the company is concerned, they've recovered their money, they've hedged their bets. And the company that then buys it is hopefully an Indian company which in rupee terms would be able to deal with the rupee payments. Now, whether that will happen, I don't know. I'm told that SunEdison is in bad financial trouble. I was reading something this morning. So whether this is a model that is expandable in the future, I don't know. So I think this is a space we'll have to watch. The point being that corrections in these kinds of things are bound to occur. Um, I am not very sure of the answer to Professor Chaudhry's question regarding the increases in income disparity with increase in the quality of life. There's no doubt that income disparity is a problem which we have to address. It may be a larger problem than just being associated with the energy sector. It's a problem that we have to address. I am not sure whether I can provide a better answer than that. Mr. Sinha talked about the fact that on the one hand we have got energy intensive industries that are increasing, and on the other hand we have got low energy intensity companies that are in the export market. One of the things that we note is that every new energy intensive industry that is set up is more efficient than the one set up yesterday. So in terms of the energy it uses for each rupee of profit it makes, it keeps on declining. That's why you see the energy intensity, that is the energy used per GDP, declining over time. This is a larger issue because, for example, if I set up a steel plant today and I'm selling steel at a particular price, there's a greater demand for steel in the country, so somebody else decides to set up a steel plant. Now, he has to compete with me, but prices have increased. The only way he can compete is by putting up a more efficient plant. That is why we see that in India and other developing countries, each new plant that is put is more efficient than the last. They have to be if they have to be competitive. And that is one of the reasons why the energy intensity declined over the 15 years that you have been talking about. Sarkar Sahab, I do wish solar energy becomes free. We heard something very, very similar in 1953 when the then chairman of the US Atomic Energy Commission said we will have nuclear energy, atomic energy at that time as it's called, which will be too cheap to meter. We haven't gone that way. There are inputs that are put in. There are costs associated with its management, which means that there will, this is not a resource that is a free resource. You are converting a free resource into something that you and I need. Yes, what is true is the prices are declining, and possibly what was meant by that was that it will be cheaper as we move into the future, which goes back to the question of when will this change occur. I would answer you, it has already occurred. Solar power today is already cheaper than electricity that you get from diesel. In the building where TERI has its offices, the India Habitat Center, we have recently set up a solar photovoltaic based system on the roof. There's an organization that has come who has invested in it. Habitat Center has not. He makes the electricity, he sells it to us at a little over 5 rupees a kilowatt hour. In that he's making enough money. We otherwise buy electricity at 7 rupees 20 paise. So for us it's already cheaper. The point is that the electricity market is not one monolithic market. It consists of many small markets. In some of those markets, this flip has already occurred. Thank you very much.
As we are running out of time and getting delayed with the proceedings, I don't think we will be able to take on more questions. There will be other occasions. May I now request Mr. Shutanu Ghosh to formally propose a vote of thanks to Dr. Mathur.
Dr. Mathur, sir, your presentation today matched this climate change, the two words, as regard its gamut. The length and the breadth. It was really stupefying. You took us back to Kyoto and Copenhagen. portrayed India's preparations by understanding its own baseline, its own ground truth, and the preparation for the negotiations of Paris. You put forward the positives, the number of positives and the few negatives that happened at Paris, and then brought to the table the challenges that India faces. I think that was very, very extensive. Sir, your presentation reminded me of a publication by Terry a few years ago, a book that was entitled Looking Back to Think Ahead. And I think that's the key word to success in any discipline. Looking back to think ahead. It's a wonderful publication. And sir, thank you very much for being in our midst. As what can I say, whether you're Director BE or currently Director Terry, you are a true friend of the Bengal Chamber, as you have yourself expressed. And this is your first footprint in your current avatar, but certainly there'll be the second, the third, the fourth, and up to the nth. N is not being defined right here. So thank you very, very much for being with us this morning and this afternoon. Deb.
May I now request Mr. Arun Mukherjee to please present a memento on behalf of the Chamber.
As Orunda does the honors here, would I kindly request all of you to give Dr. Mathur a vote of thanks for total acclamation. Thank you, sir.
We shall now change over to the next session. Angona, if you can please set it up and take the proceedings forward whilst we escort Dr. Mathur. Dr. Mathur will be leaving us after the press meet because he has some other engagements. Mr. Sanjay Seth would be taking over as the moderator for the next session.
We will just take a couple of minutes to do the changeover. The panel discussion is on India's power realities from generation to consumers. Sri Rajesh Pandey, Chairman and Managing Director, West Bengal State Electricity Distribution Company Limited, and Sri Shantanu Basu, Chairman and Managing Director of West Bengal Power Development Corporation Limited, are held up on special assignments due to the unfortunate incident occurred yesterday, the flyover collapse. We have with us Mr. Prithviraj Nath, Policy Analyst and Head CUTS International, Kolkata. Mr. A.K. Goswami, Director, India Power Corporation Limited. Mr. A. Mondul, President, Business Development, Techno Electric and Engineering Company Limited. And as Mr. Mukherjee said, Mr. Sanjay Seth, Secretary, Bureau of Energy Efficiency, will moderate the session. So we will request Mr. Seth, Mr. Nath, Mr. Goswami and Mr. Mondul to please take their seat on the dais.